Vine Go, and my special guest today is Hachi. He is 5 years old, and he's our Shiba Inu dog that we adopted from a family in Idaho. And he's been with us for how many years, Paul?
3 years.
3 years, and we
Almost
just
4.
love him so much. And we have another one of these, 14-year-old Suki, and she's a little too skittish for me to pick up because she does not like being touched. But Hachi's a cuddler, so I thought I'd introduce him to you guys just for fun, and because he was in here being really super quiet. It's probably his nap time. Is it your nap time? I would have him help me paint the starfish, but I don't think he would do the same type of job that some of us would do. So I'm gonna move Hachi back to the couch, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. Here you go, boy. Come over here. Lay down. You can relax. Okay, so today I am teaching my chair.
You're teaching your chair.
My chair makes a lot of noise. It is a metal chair on a wood floor, and so it sometimes makes some not very polite noises. But anyway, let's go ahead and get this painting started. So today is the starfish, and that's right here. I'm gonna teach you how to paint it. It's a fun painting, and the way we do the star is pretty easy so that you can easily draw. That was the one part I was kind of concerned about when I developed this painting, was teaching that starfish, but I've got it pretty dialed in to where it's gonna be really easy for you guys. Let's talk about what we need. So I have a 11 by 14 canvas, and if you ordered the kit, this is what comes with the kit. I have 3 brushes. You might have different ones than I do. It does not matter. We just want a large, medium, and small. And when I teach kids classes, I refer to them as dad, mom, and baby. However you want to think of them. Just large, medium, and small. And then paint colors. Actually, let's talk about what else we need before we do paint colors. I have an old paper towel. I used this for the last painting class, so it's already got paint on it. But hey, I'm recycling. And then I have an old cup. This is my old Van Gogh mug that was not supposed to be put in the dishwasher, and it inadvertently got put in the dishwasher, so it started peeling off. So I figured, well, this is my new paint mug. And look, it's got an ear-shaped handle, because if you know, Van Gogh was the artist that everybody knew cut off his ear. For whatever reason, nobody knows. But that being said, let's talk about our paint colors. I have 5 colors on this painting. I will admit the first few boxes I sent out, I accidentally included black. So you don't need black, but if you want to put black anywhere on your painting, you absolutely can. If not, just save it for some other painting that you do later on down the road. So we have a dark brown that is called raw umber. This goldish color, the actual technical paint color is raw sienna. So if you hear me refer to it as raw sienna, that's why. I'm going to try to refer to it as just gold. And then we have white. We have cobalt blue, which is just a primary blue, just given a special name. And then we have this lovely orange color, which is perfect for our starfish. So I'm going to set this aside. I have a little cup of coffee today, because sometimes when I talk a lot, I need something to sip on once in a while so my throat doesn't get too dried out. And it's morning here, so coffee works. All right, let's go ahead and take our biggest brush. So this is the one I called the dad brush. Just whatever brush you have that's your biggest. Go ahead and let's dip it in the water cup, kind of brush it across the bottom of the cup. We're gonna wake up those bristles right now. And dry it off really good on your towel, or your paint rag, or your paper towel, whatever you're using. And I'm going to pull over the original just to show it one last time. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna start with the sand, and we're gonna draw off this line that's the shoreline coming in, and paint all this in, because we want this to dry while we work on the water. And that way we can come back, this will be nice and dry, we can draw the sand dollar and the starfish and start adding little pebbles and things to the sand, and then we'll be able to go back and add little bubbles and dots to the water. This is a super fun one. All right, let's go ahead, let's look at our palette. I want to mix 3 colors together, and not very much of each. You don't need a ton. So I'll scrape brown in the middle. I'm gonna scrape gold in the middle. Let's stir those together. And guess what? It makes golden brown, imagine that. And now to lighten it just a little bit, I'm going to scrape in some white. Now this is where I want you to decide what color your sand will be. So sometimes we see sand that's kind of grayish. I decided to make this one sort of a golden brown with white added to it just to lighten it up. And I think I'll add just a little more gold to this. But you can really make that decision yourself. What color sand you want is your choice. You might want it more brown, you might want it more gold. You might want it gray. I've been to different beaches. I'm in Oregon, and I've been to different beaches over the years, and some of them are this color, and a lot of them have like little rocks this color, like the beaches that have agates and stuff. And then mostly though, they're like a grayish, sparkly sand. So I like this color I made. It can be kind of streaky when you paint it on the canvas, so it doesn't have to be like a solid mix. But let's go ahead and figure out where our water line is going to be. It can be a little bit different for everyone. We just want enough room for the starfish and the sand dollar. Let's go ahead and on this side, I'm going to come up about this far. So it's real close to, if I were to divide this canvas into 3 sections, it's about 1/3 of the way up top, up from the bottom. Let's make a dot, something to mark it off. And then over here, we're gonna go up to the top of the canvas and we're gonna come down about 1/3, right about there, kinda, sorta. Doesn't matter exactly where it's placed. It might be down here, or it might be down here. But I want to make a wavy shoreline, like the water's rolling in the way it does. Little lazy waves here. That looks good to me. I've got room to put my starfish here, room for a sand dollar. You might even have room for something else. But let's go ahead and fill this in. Let's start from the bottom and just go back and forth. I will show you some fun things we can do here after I get a little paint on the canvas. So this is where I like to, anytime I'm painting dirt or sand or anything like that, I always think that if you look at a beach, there's not just one color. There's lots of little multicolored tones of brown or gray that make up the sand color overall. So every once in a while, maybe I'll take just plain brown and just streak it in there, just to make some patches of sand that are a different color. Maybe once in a while I'll take a little white and streak it in there. You want to blend the white in pretty good because you don't want it to be as white as like your sand dollar is going to be. The other thing you can do is streak some gold in there. So any of those 3 colors. That way you don't end up with just one solid mass of one color. It definitely looks better to have some other color tones mixed in there. It looks more natural. So I'll, every just once in a while, pick up whatever color my brush gravitates towards. So it just gravitated toward brown. Now I'm going for my regular mix of the 3 colors. Now maybe I'll pick up a tiny bit of white. So obviously that's going to lighten up those areas that you brush it on. White is great too if you're really wanting a solid coverage down here. Because as you may have noticed already, you can kind of see through some of the browns and see the canvas underneath. White will help make that more opaque. That's when you can't see through it. Or you can always go back and add a second coat of paint. I think Hachi took off. Maybe he's just being Shiba shy. So the funny thing about Shibas, I don't know if any of you guys have one. They're fairly rare. I don't see them very often. Although there's a couple people in my neighborhood who have them. They are the type of dog that unfortunately, they're runners, which means I can't ever have Hachi off leash outside in an open space. In our fenced backyard, he can run around without a leash, no problem. But if I were to take him out in our cul-de-sac and take his leash off, he would take off and probably go right for the main road. So that's the one downside. They are runners. They'll chase after a blowing plastic bag in the wind and then try to have to figure out how to come back home. All of that while trying to avoid getting out into traffic. So they have my two sheeps. They've gotten out a couple times, but we built a special gate around our front door, so now they can't get out. And it allows them to go on the front porch if they want. So you guys might paint a little bit slower than I do. That's totally fine. I tend to sometimes go quicker because, well, for one thing, I painted this painting lots of times before, but also when I'm teaching on the stage, which is what I'm usually doing, where there's kids out in the class and I get to walk around. I'll paint mine real fast and then I'll walk around and see how everybody's catching up and see if anyone needs more paint. So you guys just take your time. You can always pause this video. So I'll just occasionally put some more streaks of color in here. Keep in mind, we're gonna have some objects down here on the sand. So there will be some spots that will be covered up. This is looking pretty good to me. This way we get to sort of travel to the beach via the canvas. So we can't really go to the beach right now, but we can definitely paint our way there. That's always fun. Get to do a little canvas travel. I don't usually see starfish on the beach in Oregon. I don't know if they wash up like that. I've only ever seen them in tide pools, and even that's kind of a rare sight. I would see them a lot more when I was a kid. But maybe that's because when I was a kid, I was always in those tide pools. But they are really interesting creatures for sure. Maybe this one's just taking a little sunbathe for a little bit. Okay, so I've got the bottom part of my painting done. If you're still painting, you can go ahead and pause the video and catch up to this point. You can, if you're ahead already and you want to paint the edges, paint the color around the edges of the canvas, you can do that. You can always do that at the end too, so that you stay caught up. But I'm going to wash off the dad brush because we need to use dad brush again, but we need to use dad brush with a different color. I bet you guys can guess what color we're going to use mainly. That's right. I can hear you in my mind. Blue. We are going to go to blue, and we're also going to streak in a little white. Let me bring that original back over here. So I have my cobalt blue, and then as I paint it in, just like the way we painted the sand, I'll streak in white. So I'll go blue, 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 dip the brush in white, 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 and make sure they're all mixing together. And then as we get close to the shoreline, we're gonna lighten it up because the water is deeper out here, which means it's gonna be darker. And then as it gets out to the shore, it breaks up. And most of you guys know that funny foam that's always on the water as it comes into shore. Let's go ahead and start that process. So dad brush again, and I will take a little cobalt blue, just whatever your dark blue is, plop it off to the side here, and then I'm going to scrape in and dab a little white in there. So I'm just poking it in there because I want this to look not over stirred. I want it to look like it's marbled and streaky. So my brush looks like this. I have blue and white on there, which means when I paint it on the canvas, I'm gonna have blue and white on the canvas. Let's start way up here, back and forth. Now you can do long brush strokes like this, back and forth. Some kiddos like to paint that way. Some adults like to paint that way too. Or you can do short choppy brush strokes like this, because it is the ocean, which is always moving. You'll never see the ocean be still, especially near the shore. Even I've been out on a fishing boat, deep sea fishing, and even way out there where it looks like the water is calm, it's not. Your boat's always going like this. And I discovered the hard way that my stomach does not like that. And seasickness is no fun at all. It's probably the worst I've ever felt. So then I'll dip my brush right in just the plain blue, just like we did on the sand. I'll streak some just plain dark blue in there, just blend it in. Such a pretty color to add in addition to, like, this was kind of, you know, brown. And now we've got this really cool bright color up here. And now I'm about a third of the way down from the top, maybe even just a quarter of the way down from the top. I'll go ahead and streak in some white. You can blend it a little if you want, or you can leave it in lines like this one, because what those are, they're little breakers. They're the waves that are forming a little bit further back. They're going to come crashing onto the shore and probably wash our little starfish and sand dollar right back into their home. Sand dollars are pretty cool. I have a collection of those that my friend gave me. She goes to the beach a lot, and she comes to our Vine Go studio a lot. And she gave me a paper bag full of them. And she said, I found these on the beach, and I was thinking maybe you might have some kind of craft idea you could do with those. So I have been in the back of my mind thinking about that here and there. I've used them in like terrariums that I've made with plants, like a glass. I did a ocean themed terrarium that was really fun. But I'm trying to think of something else I can do with those. If you have any ideas, you can comment below, because I've had those for several years now. And they've just been sitting up in my art drawer upstairs, just waiting for me to come up with some real clever plan. So far it hasn't happened. Painting keeps me pretty busy, but I bet I could paint some ocean scenes on those. That might be fun. The funny thing is, whenever I've taken them out of the bag, a bunch of Oregon sand falls out of them, it's kind of cool. It's like, oh, hey, I'm taking a little trip to the beach, sort of. So I'm streaking just some white back in there. As you get down here where the two colors meet, we'll just say we're going to be a little more careful. We can overlap the brown a bit. In fact, we might end up wanting to do that just a little bit. We don't want to leave any white canvas showing. But here's where, remember I showed you it's a little bit lighter blue along the side, and then finally we end up later on putting some white on here. So this is where you might, when you get down to where you have just a little bit of space left, you might take and mix a light blue right here, like a sky blue. And I'm not going to overmix, it can be sort of blendy right on the palette, but I'm going to brush this in as I get closer to the shoreline. We'll do some other things back here too, so we're going to go back after this dries a bit and add some more whitish streaks through there. If you feel like you want to use a smaller brush, like the mom brush, to get through here, if your big one feels like it's a little bit too big, you can absolutely do that anytime. Anytime throughout this painting, if it feels more comfortable to you to use a littler brush or a different size that I'm using, please do. We all paint differently. There, I'm just sort of blending that light blue into that wet, darker blue paint that's already on there. But that looks pretty good to me. Like I said, we'll come back and add in some white streaks that are like the breakers back there. Because sometimes when you're painting the white streaks on top of the dark blue, they get a little bit too blended in because it's wet paint on top of wet paint. So sometimes if we wait for that to dry, it's easier to come back and get some nice streaky crashing waves in there. Or almost crashing waves. Water and waves are something that can be a challenge to paint. I've seen some incredible artists that have done amazing waves. There's an artist that he has a show on one of the let's see, in Oregon, I think it's on OPB, Oregon Public Broadcasting, and he paints ocean scenes, and they're just gorgeous, just so neat with the waves and the sun going through the waves, so it looks real. And I got to see his paintings in person because when I went to Hawaii, I saw he had an art gallery there, so that was pretty neat. Okay. That looks pretty good for now. So we have our whole entire canvas covered. This is where, like, and sometimes in class I'll be like, you could stop right now, and you've already got kind of a cool painting that, you know, you could just hang up and be like, look what I did. It's a color study. So we're going to keep painting. We're going to paint the starfish and the sand dollar on there. But I do want to let you know that sometimes just doing blocks of color is really fun to do and satisfying. Okay, let's talk about shapes. So this should be mostly dry. If it's not, then I will have you ask your parent to help you, have an adult help you use a hairdryer to dry the whole thing. You can pause me and dry it, or you can pause me and wait, maybe doodle some starfish while you're waiting just to practice, or some sand dollars. But if this is really wet, then you might want to do that. Mine's just, it's got a couple little tiny wet spaces. Like down in here, you can see where it's kind of glossy, but it's going to be okay. I can actually start on some of the starfish outlines, and the sand dollar too up here is still really wet. So let's talk about shapes. This is an oval. And I know they're round, but we're sort of looking at it from a distance. So we're seeing more of an oval shape. If you feel like, you know, I really want to make it round, then go right ahead. You can absolutely do that. And the starfish is obviously a 5-pointed star, although I've seen them before where they have lots and lots of legs. I guess they call them legs. I don't know. Maybe I don't think they call them tentacles. That wouldn't sound right. But if you want to do any other, like maybe a little crab, you could do a little orange crab over here, or even a blue crab. That would be kind of neat. But let's go ahead and start with this basic shape. You're either going to do a round or an oval, whatever is singing to you today. And let's talk about brushes. Let's use our middle-sized brush. So the one I called Mom. You might have a flat one or you might have a round one. It really doesn't matter. Both of those will get the job done. Now, if you want to do more than one sand dollar, go right ahead. There's plenty of room. At least on my sand, I've got room to put a beach ball and all kinds of stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and take my Mom brush and dip it in white paint. Feel free to use your baby brush. If drawing with a small pointy brush is easier for you, I'd say go for it. I'm going to come back a little bit. I want to leave room to put the foam along here. So I'll come right back about here. And I'm just going to sketch out an oval, or like I said, go ahead and do a circle if you want, if that's a little easier. Maybe you're looking at a top view of these. It's a painting. You can look at it from any view you want. And I'm going to fill that in. And you might pick up a little bit of sand color kind of poking through this white, or maybe you've got a wet spot where it's kind of mixing, and that's what I have. I have a little wet spot where it's just mixing in a little bit. That's okay, because what it does sometimes is it provides some unintentional shading, which is cool, and it's like we planned it, but it was a happy little accident, like Bob Ross says. I don't know if you guys have ever watched Bob Ross, but he's also a painter on the Oregon Public Broadcasting Channel and also on Netflix. And he paints really neat landscapes, snow scenes, ocean scenes, forest scenes, but he especially loves painting mountains. And he's really fun to watch, and he's just a super happy guy, and he calls trees happy little trees, and if he makes a mistake, he calls it a happy little accident. So I think he's just a happy little guy. Okay, so I've got my little, what looks like an egg on the beach. Maybe it is an egg. Maybe a seagull laid an egg there. If you want to do another, you can. But you know what? I think I might actually show you guys how to do a crab. Because I've got room and I've got time. So you can do the crab if you want. We'll do that. We'll do the starfish next. And then I'll show you the crab. Starfish, let's use baby brush now. So wash off mom brush. As you guys go along and you put brushes aside, you want to wash them. Because if the acrylic paint dries on the brushes, it can be really hard to get out. So go ahead and wash them off every time you change a brush. Now, baby brush. This is a perfect one. It's a nice little round pointed thing. And we're going to use the orange color. You can mix a little white in it if you want. That would give you just a peach tone. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll mix just a tiny bit of white. So I don't want a peach tone per se, but I want a little bit more opaque orange. So that means opaque means you can't really see through it as much. So you can see these two are very similar. It's just got the tiny bit of white added to it to make it so when I paint it on here, you don't really see through the starfish as much. Although I think just the orange on its own works pretty good. That's, how do I just dip this in paint? That's right here. That was just plain old orange, but you can see my color on my brush is very, very similar. All right. You can make a blue starfish if you want, and an orange crab. It's up to you if you want to do a crab. So for the starfish, I start with the dot, which is going to be the center, the nucleus of the starfish. It's just a little round, like maybe about the size of a marble. And then my job from here is to do 5 sticks poking out from this. So I'll do one that goes pointing up towards the sand dollar here. And these are all a couple inches long. Then I'll make one pointing out here. And then maybe one pointing out here. We're building the bone structure of the starfish right now. And then I want to do 2 out this way. So if you think about it, it's shaped like a star where you have the point on the top, the 2 on the side, and then 2 going out like this. So there's 1 there and 1 there. So we've built the starfish bones. Now this would be a super scrawny, malnourished starfish. You know, I have seen them like this though in craft stores and beach shops where they're white and they're real skinny. Maybe it's just a different variety. They're dried. It's kind of weird. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down. I'm going to do a little scoop in between these 2. That was easy. We're going to do a little scoop in between these 2. That was easy too. Scoop in between these 2. So really what we're doing is we're kind of creating this almost kite shape, I guess. One last one. It almost looks like a spider web, doesn't it? Little did you guys know we were painting orange spider webs on the beach, because why not? Just kidding. We're going to make this look better. Let's fill in this central area. So we're not going to see all those lines anymore. Now the legs are still a little too skinny and it looks really funny. So that's where I'm going to come in and I'm going to thicken up each of these little triangles. See how I just did that? I'll do another one. I'll do this one. So I might extend that out a little more. Came down on either side. And then this one is too skinny too. So every time you go through and work on one of the legs, or whatever they're called, I could probably Google that. You're just gonna thicken it up. If you end up with a goof, a lot of times you can just tuck in another leg. And like I said, they don't have to be a 5-pointed star. I've seen starfish that have lots and lots of legs. So I'm just sort of touching each of these up as I go. And sometimes when I add more paint to one, it means I need to go back and fix up another. That's just kind of how painting is, and drawing. To me, my starfish looks like it's trying to get over to this guy. Saying, hey, want to be my friend? I'm lonely here on the beach. Help me get back into the water. There. That's okay. This is kind of a funny little arc here. But, you know, they stretch funny. He's trying to stretch over to get to this guy. He's a stretchy little dude. So you can see him just sort of constantly working on each little limb. Then there comes a time where I eventually just have to say, you know what? It's good enough. It's gonna work. And that's what point I'm at right now. So how about this? How about we show a crab? They're fun to paint. It's been a long time since I painted one, and I'm sort of doing this on the fly. So if you have a way that you like to paint crabs, do it your way. But I'll show you if you want to see a different way. Let's go ahead and make a light blue, lightish blue. Maybe a little bit close to this color through here. Although, if you want a darker blue, that's fine too. Your painting, your choice. So, if I had red, I would use red too. That would be a good color. Let's say they're playing a game or something, and maybe they're rolling a shell between each other. So my crab is going to be oval right here. It can be about the same size as this one, or it can be a little smaller or larger. I'm going to do just one of those little crabs that always hides in the rocks. I spent many years trying to catch those when I was a kid. I'm going to fill that in. That is a pretty color. So it's just blue mixed with a tiny bit of white. And then they have their eyes kind of come out on these funny little antenna things. So they're pretty close together. That leaves us room for claws and legs. I should probably look at a picture of a crab first, but I'm just going on memory. So the claws, I like to just draw the stick arms first. And I'll plan on thickening those up. I'm using the baby brush. I don't know if I had said that. So I'm going to thicken it up. He looks like he's doing a muscle pose. Look how strong my muscles are. And then obviously, we need to make those pinchery claws, which luckily I've never been pinched by a crab, but I can't imagine it feels very good. So you can just do like a V shape. Already it's looking like a crab. Like a pretty blue crab, ready to pinch someone. And then they have, I'm going to do like 3 little legs on each side. I'm not sure how many they have. But in my painting, they're going to have 3 little legs. Like a spider. They're just slightly curved out. Does it look like a crab? Yes. Good, it's a crab. That's a fun little addition. If there's any other things you can think of that you want to add on here, you can. If you want to give me ideas, you can comment below on the YouTube and give me some ideas. Something I can do next time I teach it. I'm going to wash the baby brush off. We're going to let these specimens dry. I'm really loving the addition here. It kind of ties the blue ocean in to the sand. Let's go to the mom brush now. That's your middle-sized brush. Ugh, coffee's gone cold. That's okay. Middle-sized brush, mom brush. We are going to paint, while these guys dry, we're gonna paint the foam along here, and then some more streaks of white up in here. It's really easy to do. So just dip the brush right in the white paint. Let's see, I need to move my palette over. I'll hold it up here, just a little white paint. And go along the edge here, make a thick, about as thick as your brush is, maybe even a little wider. This is, and your brush strokes here don't have to be smooth. See how I'm sort of lifting? You might, if you've ever, obviously a lot of you have been to the ocean, sometimes the foam, you've got like a big patch like this. It's wider than some of this over here. I remember as a kid, now the ocean in Oregon is like 40 degrees all the time year round. But as a kid, it's like that coldness doesn't matter to you. You go right out in there and you become numb. But I remember that this foamy stuff was always, if it dried on your skin, it was always real itchy. There. Now you can blend it back a little bit by just sort of brushing backward into the ocean a little more. Just sort of manipulating the white paint. So it's a little more smoothed in there, but it doesn't have to be. And then I'll take, now that this is dry, it should be mostly dry. I'll take, and I'm using, if you have a round brush, you'll just use the round tip. If you have a square brush like mine, you'll use the skinny edge. And I'll just go back and forth and maybe even make some wavy lines that sort of match the curve of this one up here, because they're gonna be rolling in there, bringing some of the ocean water up. So this is also a little white crested foam. Or itchy stuff. Maybe I'll have to do an under ocean painting for you guys. I did one when I first started the studio almost 10 years ago. And it was so cute. It had an octopus and seaweed. I'm trying to think what else it had. Some seashells. I think it may have even had a dolphin in it. So I'll be thinking, I have some time to spend at home. When I'm done filming all these videos that I have kits out of, I will think of more new paintings. Kids paintings are some of my favorite to do. All right, that looks pretty good to me. And let's wash mom brush off. Wash her off real good, give her a bath. The way I wash the brush is I will brush the brush back and forth across the bottom of the cup. And your water's turned kind of a bluey gray, a light grayish blue. And then I'll just kind of pull the brush up the side to knock off excess water and then dry it real good on the towel and set mom down for a nap. Good job, mom, you worked hard. All right, baby brush's turn. So this time we're gonna use the handle of the brush. We're not gonna use the brush end. This is a fun little thing I do for little dots and stars and snowflakes. But what we're gonna do is we're going to dot in little dots. Maybe this is foam that's kind of broken up, or maybe it's, you know, if you've ever been to the ocean when it's sunny and you have the sun glimmering off the water, you get these fun little sparkles. Maybe that's what these were. Or they're little bubbles. I'm not going to put a ton of these, but I will put some along the shore. And then I'll show you how to paint little cute bubbles. You can even have some that go beyond the foam onto the beach. Sometimes these are just little broken pieces of shell that you'll see. Lots of those along the sandy beach where they get tumbled in the waves and they break apart. Every once in a while you'll be lucky and find a full unbroken shell. That is what I like about going to the ocean, especially if you go out in the morning and you're there before other people have gone through, you can see what washed up at night. So then that's when you can find a lot of good shells. Okay, so what I really want to do here is wipe off the handle of the brush because we don't want a white glob of dried paint to end up there. So I just squeeze it on my paper towel and clean it off. And then I'm going to show you how to paint, which I'm sure you guys can figure it out just by thinking about it. These little rings, which are little bubbles. I want to use the brush end for that. So the handle won't work. We're going to use the brush end. And just dip the very tip of the bristles in the white. See, I picked up very little tiny dot of white. If you pick up too much, then you'll get a big thick ring. I don't press very hard. In fact, sometimes I'll balance my pinky on my canvas just to make sure I don't press very hard. And I just do a really thin circle. Thin as in like the lines around it are gonna be thin. You can do different sizes. You can paint some that are kind of on the beach. And you can paint some that are out on the water. They're primarily along the shore. Just those little bubbles from the foam. These are fun. I think they add a really fun, whimsical touch to the painting too. It's all in the details. Really, it's true though, that a lot of times the details are what make the painting come together. Sometimes I've gone a little too far and added too many details. But I think this is just right. You guys put as many as you like on here. Or maybe you don't want any at all. Your choice. There. I've got a good amount. Little rings. Maybe they're strange little jellyfish. But I like to think of them as bubbles in the foam. Excuse me. I think we're ready to work on some more of this now. What I want to have us do real quick before we get too far, we're done with this stuff. The water is completely done. Yay. So before we go too far, I want to talk about shadow. This, I love this. It's such a simple thing and it makes the starfish look a little more three-dimensional, so it's not just flat right on the beach. And same with along this guy. So let's think about our sun is out here and it's shining this way. So that makes the objects that are laying here cast a little shadow behind them. So on the starfish, we're only going to shadow under these areas, and then right on the back of this guy, sand dollar. And then we've got a crab to put a shadow behind too. Baby brush is what you want to use, so wash off any white paint and dry it off real good on your towel. And I'm going to dip the brush in just the dark brown. Looks like melted chocolate, but I promise you it doesn't taste like it, so don't eat it. I'm gonna go right along the back edge of the starfish here. Just follow that curve, whatever curve you've got there. Yours might be different than mine. It probably is different than mine. Mine is never the same as even the one I painted before. And then I'll do a shadow right along here, and it's gonna stop right about there as it starts curving out. And then this one will get a shadow under here. And it's gonna stop right about there as it curves downward, because this would not be in shadow right here because the sun is hitting that part. And you can make a little bit wider shadow if you want. It doesn't have to be one brush width. It could be, you could smudge it down a little further. There's no harm in doing that. Let's see what it looks like. I'll do that. I'll make it a little bit wider shadow. I like that. That's cool. Such an easy way to make something look like it has some dimension. This one's easier than the starfish. We're just gonna go around the backside here. Again, you can make a skinny shadow or you can make a little wider like I'm doing. Probably would go along here too, a little bit. And the crab. We can't forget Mr. Crab. So he would have one right here behind his rear end. If you can go, like, fit a little shading between some of these little limbs, you can do that too. You could even shade behind the claws. They'd be casting a little shadow back. It's amazing what shading and highlighting can do for a painting. It can take it from looking fairly plain to just suddenly like, wow, that looks so good, and it's such a simple, easy thing to do. I think Hachi got hair all over me. Yeah, I like that. Oh, you know what? I washed my brush, but I don't want to yet. I want us to do the design that is on the Starfish. I mean the sand dollar. And it looks a lot like kind of reminds me of a daisy shape, actually. And I do like to, because I'm painting it, like, okay, let's look at this one here. This is done by Sophie. She taught it for me for a kids class recently. So see how hers is kind of flower shaped? I think we're gonna do that and maybe make these a tiny bit pointier on the edges if you want. And you can turn your canvas this way and draw it this way if you want, or you can draw it this way if you want, or you can draw it this way. I feel like my canvas is talking to me and telling me to turn it this way. Go with your gut feeling. And I'll use the baby brush and the dark brown. Let's put a dot right in the center of this sand dollar so that we have a center point, just like we did this thing. Ooh, he's still a little wet. Just like we did the Starfish. And then I'm going to make a leaf shape that goes this way. Leaf shape. Pretty easy, kind of an almond shape or a shape of an eye, whatever helps you visualize it. Then I'll do one that goes out this way. Always working from that center point. It is a lot like we're painting a flower. I'll make one that comes out this way. And I'm going to go with 5 points. I think that's what they have. So I'm going to do one that goes here, my leaf. Last one right here. Very cool. And then there's one other thing we add to the sand dollar. I'll turn this back around. Yeah, I like that. I'm glad I worked on it from that angle, at least with mine. You might like yours done a different way, and that's okay. I probably say that a lot, but I always want kids to know that there's lots of different approaches to getting something done. So they have like these little slits. Let's put one at the end of each point here. So fun. The ocean produces the coolest things. Sand dollar is done. Woo! Let's wash the brush. Let's work on Mr. Starfish. Or Mrs. Starfish. So we have a little cluster of dots in the center, and then the dots go down each leg. We want to use the handle of our brush just like we did back here. Use it like a little rubber stamp. Let's dip it in white, or you can make a light peach color with white and orange, or you could use blue or light blue by mixing white and blue together. I'm going to go ahead and use the white. First, what I do is I stamp a dot right smack in the middle. Boink. Looks like a little pearl. And then I'm going to do a trail of dots that go down this one leg here. And as you go along, the dots get smaller and smaller because your handle of your brush is running out of paint, but I love that. It's making them go from large to small. Oops, I just smeared. I'm almost always gonna smear something. And let's do this one. So yeah, as you go along, it runs out of paint. They get tiny and tinier and tinier and tinier. It's doing that random work for us without us even really having to do anything. This leg. Dot, dot. You may run out of paint and have to re-dip your brush partway through your brush handle. So I know a lot of you guys have been able to touch a starfish before, whether it's at one of those little special pools at like science centers and stuff where you can touch the sea creatures. And these things are really pokey. They probably have to have pretty tough skin to survive in the ocean because they're constantly getting rolled around. I don't know how jellyfish do it. They're so soft. So there we go. I've got it this way. And now if you want around the central area, you can just add a little cluster of dots, which would be like, basically what I would do is I'd start by doing one in between each of these rows. And then you could do another row of that. Like that. Super cool, super easy. Look what we did, it was so easy. Don't wipe the handle of your brush off yet. Let's give our Mr. Krabby some eyes. Little white dots. Haha. I like it. Okay, I do want to wipe the handle of the brush off now. And I'll show you something fun we can do to the crab. So their shells are hard and sometimes shiny. And we've got a light source. We've got our sunshine out here. So it could put a shine on the back of this crab. I'm not going to use white. I want to mix white and blue with the baby brush. Just make a light blue. Similar to this color that we painted along the edge of the ocean here. And I'll just go along this top part of the curve of the back shell and make a shine. And you could even paint a little shine on the claws. And even the arms. Pretty much anything that faces the sun. Now he kind of looks like he's frowning. Let's do a back shine back here. Now he looks like he's going, ah! That's pretty funny. The cool thing is, if you don't like that, and you don't want it to look like it's going, ah! You can mix up this color blue and paint right back over it. But let's paint some little sandy rocks on the beach. I shouldn't call them sandy rocks, they're actually rocks. And that's what all these little dots are. And they wash up along with the little white broken up shells. You'll see them all over. Now you can use the handle of the baby brush, or you can use the brush end. Just decide what seems right to you. And we're gonna use the dark brown. Or if you have black, you can use black. So I'm using the brush end because I know a lot of times these are different sizes and different shapes. You can find some really interesting rocks along here. Usually right along the shoreline. And put as many as you like. You could do some in other colors. You could add some white ones if you want more broken up shells. You can add some trailers, some ones way back here. Anything else you want to add? Go for it. Make it your own. Maybe you want to make a shark tail back here. But this is it. You may have drawn the crab. You might not have. You might have left it off. Either way is fine. I just thought I'd add that for some fun, and I knew this painting goes kind of fast, so that's just a fun addition. You can look up different shells and things online and see how you might paint one of those. But when you are finally done with it, which at some point you will get there, pick whatever color you want and use your baby brush, and we're going to sign the painting. Now I want to keep my signature pretty small because I want the focus to be here on this, not on my signature. So I usually will tuck my initials. I just did simple, I came up with this simple loop-de-loop design of my initials years ago. And it's easy, and I have to sign a lot of paintings, so I just leave it at that. You can write your first name, your last name, whatever you guys want to do. Draw your own little symbol, whatever works. But that is it. We got to take a little trip to the beach today. That was really fun. I'm really glad we added the crab. Other things you could add, seaweed, different types of shells. Like the easiest one would be those scallop shells. But have fun with it. And I hope you guys had fun today. I certainly had fun revisiting this painting again. It's been a little while since I taught it. And have a great rest of your day and keep painting and keep reading, and hopefully you can spend some good time passing some time as we're all sort of stuck at home right now. But I want you guys all to have a good day and come back and see me again sometime. Too bad Hachi's not in here to say goodbye, but I'll say goodbye for Hachi. Woof. Bye-bye.